Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another MIDF conversation, where we host a lunchtime conversation between MIDF and captains of industry and thought leaders. This is a keto lunch for the intellect. No carbs, no starch, just the good stuff. Pure protein and some greens as food for thought. I would like to welcome all our participants today, the entrepreneurs, CEOs, fund managers, and finance and business professionals, the individual investors investing their own hard-earned money, members of the media, students, especially those studying macroeconomics, colleagues, and everyone else. I am delighted that we have with us today Dato Nazim Rahman, the Chief Executive of Lembaga Tabung Angkatan Tentera. Bonjour, Dato Nazim. Comment allez-vous?
Bonjour, Dato Sharon. Ça va bien?
Oh, bon. Bienvenue dans les conversations MIDF.
Merci beaucoup. Mon français est assez bon pour acheter de la baguette. My French is good enough to buy a baguette. Je ne parlerai plus. I will not speak French anymore.
That is fantastic. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is our first guest who's actually studied in France. Dato Nazim studied economics and public policy at one of France's elite grand écoles, Sciences Po, which is the Paris Institute of Political Studies, or in French, the Institut d'études politiques de Paris, and read law at Georgetown University, Washington, D.C., and at the International Islamic University of Malaysia. Dato Nazim was a Fulbright J. William Fulbright Fellow and AILA International Fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C. So welcome, Dato Nazim, and thank you so much for joining us. It's been 11 months since you've been at the helm of LTAT. But before we get to that, perhaps could you just tell us a little bit about your professional journey and how is it you went to France and how do you end up here as the CEO of LTAT?
I started my career as a lawyer. I was at Zaid Ibrahim & Co, and you were one of the partners there, specializing in corporate commercial, doing mergers, acquisitions, capital market, and so on. And then I moved to the Securities Commission in the Corporate Finance Investment Division. Then I moved to the banking sector. I was at the National Bank of Abu Dhabi. Prior to that, I was in London for a while at Northern Rose in London, doing banking and finance. Then my leadership experience started at Pelaburan Mahara Berhad back in 2013 to 2018, where we expanded the business of the company from asset management into a full-fledged financial services entity. Minus deposit taking, of course. Then in 2018, I moved back to Dubai, where I was prior to 2013, joining the private equity fund based in Dubai. But I was managing the fund management business for Southeast Asia, investing in sectors like healthcare, like education, like logistics. Then in 2021, I was given an opportunity to come back and lead LTAT, and we are on a very exciting transformation journey at the moment.
Gosh, congratulations! You certainly have the track record and the experience to be in the position you are at the moment. So now LTAT is. It's a big responsibility. I don't have to tell you this, but to be in charge not only with the pension fund, but for the pension fund for our armed forces is must weigh heavily. We owe everything to our armed forces. They're putting their putting their life and limb on the line for us, and the least we can do is to make sure that they have enough money to look after themselves when they leave the armed forces. So it's a heavy responsibility, and I'm glad that it falls on mighty shoulders, like of your mighty shoulders, to look after this. You gave an interview recently in the Edge, very front page, a cover page, and lots of things there about what happened in LTAT. Maybe tell us a little bit about what's going on in LTAT and the kind of transformation you want to undertake at the fund.
Yes, but perhaps I could start with how lucky I am to have inherited a very strong team, LTAT. My predecessors have put in place a splendid 5-year transformation plan. So that has made my job a lot easier. And what is left for me to do is just to put that transformation on steroid. So for the past 11 months, that has been putting the transformation into motion, executing it, and hopefully we execute it well. And after all, the plan is only as good as its execution. There is also well, quote unquote privilege of being part of LTAT, part of the armed forces community, as I mentioned, you mentioned earlier. The opportunity I had to visit some of the military bases around the country has given me that sense of personal mission to make sure that we, the team within LTAT, run the organization well. Just to relate a bit of personal experience, I once had a chance to go on board of KD Tun Razak. That's the name of one of our submarines.
Wow.
Dock at the naval base in Sepangga Bay near Kota Kinabalu. The space inside the submarine was so tiny. The sleeping cabin was of the size of your body. You couldn't even move once you sleep, with only one toilet for the entire submarine. I kept wondering how 45 Navy officers could work and live there for a good 3 weeks, 200 meters underwater, with nothing else but bravery, skills, and prayers to keep them safe so they could come back on shore alive. And not to mention the eerie silence when you are deep underwater, the kind of silence that you could imagine if you watch the Sean Connery movie, The Hunt for Red October. So the kind of hardship, the sacrifice to protect our maritime security, our vast economic interests, resources within our maritime border is one of those things that keep me going, no matter how challenging the task is to protect their retirement fund. Yeah, so that's a bit of the personal experience that I've had over the past 11 months. So at the moment, we are making a steady progress. Our AUM has grown by about 9.4% to now about 9.7 billion. We have managed to declare a dividend return of about 4.1% for last year. And that is, I'm happy to mention, the highest since the start of the transformation plan in 2018, when we started the journey declaring the dividend of just about 2%. And I think it's been progressing well. We have also seen an increase in retained earnings from a negative earnings of about 173 million in 2018, when we had to restate our account, to now about 338 million as at March this year. So there have been, I think has been a tremendous progress over the years. We started that transformation journey and we are currently executing it. Okay.
So, we've had the heads of EPF and the head of PNB on these conversations, and they've talked about the way they manage their funds. But your fund is slightly different though, because we always see as LTT not as a fund like say EPF is, but more you're always synonymous with Boustead, Pharmaniaga, Affin Bank. I mean, so it seems different than EPF or something where it's more of a portfolio investor. Is that something you are keen to carry on? This idea that you identify LTAT as very much with Boustead and the Boustead Group and Affin.
Yes. I think that has been the model for LTAT all the way for the past 50 years. This is our 50th anniversary, 2022. But I think the question that we need to ask whether that would be the right model for a retirement fund like LTAT. If we were to model ourselves against POP or EPF as retirement funds, I don't think it would be the right model For the past, yes, it may have worked well for LTAT, Boustead giving splendid dividend return over the years. But I think moving forward, the focus would have to be how do we provide sustainable return over the next 50 years. And judging from the experience over the past few years, I don't think that the previous model of being an investment fund rather than a retirement fund would be a right model anymore. So, so moving forward for the next 50 years, we have got to make this change. We have got to transform ourselves from an investment fund into a retirement fund. So what we mean by retirement fund is that we have got to be diversified in terms of our risk, diversify away from concentration risk. Our investment decision has got to be guided by the strategic asset allocation framework that we have just introduced in 2020. So that has got to be the guidance over the next few years if our strategy would be to provide stable and sustainable return to the armed forces.
Okay, so you have some slides here. Is there something you want to go through right now?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Our concentration right now has always been in Boustead, Affin Bank, and all the related companies within the group. More than 50% are concentrated into these companies. Within the strategic asset allocation, of course, we have to diversify from those concentration to invest in public equity, in private equity, real estate, in fixed income, as well as the money market and cash. So that is now being done, is being transformed with the target asset allocation. Moving forward, we have to be based on what we show here in the pie chart. Private equity being at 10%. Real estate at 10%. The fixed income has got to increase to 20% from the current 7.8%. Listed equity at 50%. So that will have to be the target from the current exposure as of December 2021, where listed equity is 43%, private equity at 14.6%, real estate 27%, and our fixed income at the current level at 7.8%.
So this public equity, does that include Boustead Group and Affin Group? That's 50%.
Yes, at the moment it is included. Right now is part of listed equity that we own. So yeah, so that has got to be, if we were to increase our exposure in public equity, it would have to be limited to 50% under the strategic asset allocation framework.
I see. Okay, so you're saying this is more reflective of what the asset allocation of a retirement fund as opposed to someone as an investment fund, which should...
Yes, that should be the case. I mean, rather than concentrating ourselves in specific companies, in specific sectors, even when it comes to listed equity, has got to be diversify away from those concentration. So that's why our strategy moving forward, starting this year, is to increase our exposure and make a foray into international market, so that our exposure to international public equity would be about 20% of the entire listed equity exposure.
Gosh. So it's 50% public equities and another 50%, 20% is foreign and 30% will be Malaysians. That's not the kind of...
Yeah, listed equity about 50%, and out of that, about 20% exposure in international equity.
Okay. Have you started yet investing abroad, or is this still a plan?
Well, we hope to start in the third quarter, the fourth quarter this year. We are going through the the necessary approval process, Ministry of Finance and Bank Negara. So hopefully, we can get approval in time for us to make a foray to the international market by the third quarter.
Well, it's a good time to start. Prices have come down a lot. I mean, just imagine if you started buying in, the fourth quarter of last year when prices were all-time high. So it's good.
Oh, yes, I think we are at the right time now. If we were to go into listed equities.
Okay. We have, sorry, just so everyone who's listening in, we have a Q&A box which you can type in your questions, and we'll be running through that those Q&As as we carry on with the conversation. So okay, good. So this shift from my office is on Jalan Raja Chulan, and I'm just looking outside the window, and I can see Menara Boustead. I can see Affin Bank headquarters next to me. This yes. Raja Chulan is very much yeah LTAT street, right? So I can't imagine that all these companies will no longer be, well, you won't sell it all, but presumably you're going to reduce your holdings in these companies over time.
Yes, of course, investment and divestment is part of the overall strategy. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it has got to be guided by certain objective measure. And in our case, it would have to be a strategic asset allocation framework. So that would have to be our guidance. So any divestment in the future would have to be guided by this framework. But having said that, I think the focus right now has got to be value enhancement. How do we enhance the value of these companies? At the moment, if you take in the case of Boustead Holdings, the current asset value is about 160 cents, but it's only traded at about 80 cents at the moment. It's so undervalued. So of course, we have got to put out the right story, really enhance the value of the company, so that we can achieve a market price that is at par with the actual value of the company. Companies like Affin Bank, for example, is upward trajectory. They registered a loan growth of about 18% last year, I think more than anybody else in the market. They have increased the loan size to about 50+ billion. And I think they are progressing well to achieve a 100 billion target over the next few years. So, so the focus internally within LTAT, within the whole group of Boustead, including companies like Boustead Plantation, Pharmaniaga, are very much in enhancing the value of those companies. And I think we are pushing that at the moment. And everyone is coming together to achieve their objective.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we'll go in detail in each of these companies. So we've got questions here from Mr. Taufik Jalal, and he says that banking, Affin Bank, has always been a key contributor towards LTAT. Of late, there have been a few divestment exercises in the market by Affin Bank. Is there a shift in LTAT's core business focus? If yes, which sectors? Thank you. So maybe just start talking about Affin Bank. I mean, they've sold one of the very successful subsidiaries which they have in terms of asset management. Is there going to be a shift? I mean, you talked a little bit just now about the rise in profits within Affin.
Well, our objectives have always been on how to generate higher dividends from all these companies, extract higher dividends. And at the moment, we have not been seeing the kind of return that we would like to see from these companies. That's why the focus is on enhancing the profitability of this company, enhancing the value of the companies, so that can then be generated in the form of dividend to LTAT, which we then declare as dividend to our contributors. Yeah. So if we talk about Affin Bank, yes, they have been seeing positive momentum over the years. Since we started transformation journey at Affin Bank level since 2020, they have seen upward trajectory when it comes to their net profit. Last year, they registered about 730 million net profit for Affin Bank. And that's the highest after so many years. The loan growth, as I mentioned, we have seen the bank registering a growth of about 18% for last year. And we should be seeing consistent growth over the next few years for the bank. So this is all part of the value enhancement strategy, focusing very much on Islamic banking business within Affin Bank. Of course, there is a reduction in fee-based income because of the reduction in equity trading activities, for example. But we are seeing the growth of interest-based income for the bank. So when it comes to the core business of the bank, we are happy to see that there is an upward trajectory when it comes to the business overall.
Great. I mean, you know, Juan Razli's been there for a while now, and obviously he's done a very good job.
Oh yes. I think he's done a very tremendous job transforming the bank, and I think we are seeing the results now.
Okay, so you see Affin Bank as being a bank for the armed forces, for the soldiers and the men and women of the military to use, or is this a bank for everyone? Affin Bank.
Well, it's a bank for everyone, not limited to the armed forces. Of course, you know, you see the bank as being part of LTAT, but we have got other shareholders as well holding shares in the bank. But it's the bank that serves everybody, and we are expanding not just in terms of the traditional business, but we also expanding in the digital banking sphere. I'm not sure if anyone realized that we already launched a digital banking platform called Aladdin.
Aladdin, okay.
Under Affin Bank, yes. So we're also making a foray into the digital banking space, so that you know, digital banking could also complement the traditional business that the banks are taking right now.
Okay, but you did apply for a digital banking license because
no, we didn't. The bank didn't see a need to apply for digital banking license because you know, even if we look at the banking business on its own, they are operating the digital platform. So it's a matter of expanding it into digital banking space.
Okay, wow, that's good. That's good. And but you know, you still have quite a lot of branches. Are you gonna you know, rationalize your branch network because you're going more digital?
Well, perhaps there will be a detailed strategy that the bank is undergoing now. But I think whatever strategy, whether it were to expand the branches for the bank or to expand the digital banking platform, I think that will have to be part of the overall strategy of the bank.
Okay, gosh, that's interesting. And you know, the rumors of that you might be, sorry, not rumors, wrong word, but is Affin Bank one of the companies which you are looking at doing some divestments?
Well, it's a tricky question. Any decision has got to be guided, as I mentioned, by strategic asset allocation framework. And the focus right now is what do we do to enhance the value before we start thinking about what divesting. But it's got to be part of the overall strategy of a retirement fund. But yeah, I think if we were to divest, we were to divest at the right price.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So got a question from Sherman Lam on Pharmaniaga, and whether you are going to divest, and if so, how much you're going to sell down. So tell me about Pharmaniaga anyway, because it did quite well, isn't it? Out of the whole vaccine, all the vaccines.
Yes. I think they have deployed the Sinovac vaccine very well, and that has contributed to the bottom line of the company. But I think most importantly, now that we have entered the era of endemic, what would be the right business plan for the company moving forward? So at the moment, Pharmaniaga is expanding into the retail market, expanding the retail branches so that they could capture the retail market as a whole. And at the same time, increasing the distribution channel for some of their products, so that you could sell well, and that is to include the national market. And right now, that's what Pharmaniaga is doing.
Okay. So when you say retail, is it like opening shops like Watsons or Guardians? Is that what the Pharmaniaga is going to do?
Yes. At the moment, the Pharmaniaga is doing it as part of the drug development franchise, doing it as part of franchise development.
Okay.
So they have a few outlets right now under the program, but they are expanding into as a direct ownership of the outlets over the long term.
I see. So this is for armed forces personnel or anybody?
No, not for the armed forces. For anyone.
Anyone. I see.
Of course, they have got a current program, the pharmaceutical retail development program, but they are also expanding the business on their own, to expand into the retail market.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, the pandemic has shown us just how important a pharma company is. And you've done.
Oh yes,
done very well.
Yeah.
But are you going to be looking? Is Pharmaniaga going to be looking at doing other kinds of medicines or drugs? I mean, are they going to do research into developing new drugs, or perhaps just concentrate more on being a manufacturer of having a licensee of products?
Yes, at the moment they are the licensee of products, but I think this is one company that employed a number of scientists to also do research and development. So yes, they are doing R&D in developing some of the new products. I don't have the detail with me right now, but this is one of the part of the business plan that Pharmaniaga is undertaking.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I mean, if you look at India, for example, they've done very well in pharmaceuticals. So maybe we can, companies like Pharmaniaga can do the same here. That'd be good.
Yes. Well, they have established a relationship with pharmaceutical companies in other countries to see how we can collaborate to do the R&D to develop new products.
So I've got a question here from Mr. Arsad Tinun. I'm not sure he's looking for a job or not, but he says, Dato Nazim, do you have external managers currently managing money for LTAT? Do you outsource your funds, or do you do it all internally?
Yes, we have both internal and external fund managers. At the moment, we do have external managers managing some of our equities portfolio. But because our exposure at the moment is very much domestic, so they are domestic fund managers. But as I said, in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter this year, we are starting to gain exposure to international equity market. We will do that through external fund managers as well, apart from having some of the funds managed internally
Right.
And at the same time, we are also increasing our exposure in fixed income from the current about 8% to about 20%. Yeah, so that will be done. The management of the fund will also be done through both external fund managers as well as internal fund managers.
Okay. Okay. So will you be looking at opening an office? I don't know, an office in New York or somewhere like that? This can start something overseas.
No, I don't think there is a need for any overseas market at this stage.
Right.
We are starting, and I think we can leverage on the expertise of external fund managers available around the world.
I mean, we certainly notice, the big funds like PNB and EPF, they really are moving a lot of their investments overseas. Maybe not selling Malaysia and buying overseas, but as new money comes in, I think a lot of that new money is being deployed to invest overseas, and then just seems the trend, isn't it?
Yes, right.
Do you worry about capital flight? I mean, if all the Malaysian funds stop investing in Bursa and start just taking the money out, do you think that's the end of Bursa?
I think so. There is enough capital that is currently invested in Bursa. But I think for us to achieve the objective of providing stable and sustainable return, we have got to diversify across asset classes, as well as diversification across sectors, as well as across markets. So it is important for us to increase our exposure to international markets so that we have that balanced portfolio to provide a sustainable return over the years.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, from any kind of textbook fund management is to maintain that kind of diversity, right? And
yeah, exactly.
Across assets, across geographies, across sectors, I mean, all that kinds of things you have to do.
That's right.
So getting back to ESG is obviously a big thing these days among all the funds, and you can see both EPF and PNB have released some their principles on ESG investing. Is this something which you are looking at? Is LTAT looking at ESG and coming up with some kind of ESG policy or framework for the future? Or?
Well, in fact, for the part of the LTAT, of course, this is one area that we are looking at. But of course, our focus right now is on the G side, the G part.
Governance, okay.
Yes, the governance. So right now we are putting in place the new policies and guidelines, our internal practices relating to investment, to finance, risk management, human capital, to ensure that due processes are adhered to. We have also set up integrity department, reporting directly to integrity committee at the board level, working closely with SPRM to raise awareness related to corruption and integrity. So we are actively pursuing that G part in the ESG. Right. That's our priority now.
I see.
But internally within our listed subsidiaries, Boustead Group, for example, we have a reinventing Boustead plan.
Okay.
That put very much focus on sustainability related business. Within Affin Bank, for example, the transformation program under the Affinity in Motion 2022 is giving focus on ESG as well. So yes, at LTAT, our priority is on the governance, developing the right framework, putting in place the risk management framework and so on. But at the company's level, within LTAT Group, we are pursuing ESG framework so that we are aligned with international practices.
Okay, well, it's interesting. That's good. This governance. How many people work in LTAT? I mean, sorry, what's the staff force?
For staff force, we have got about 270 people.
At LTAT, I see.
At the moment at LTAT.
Oh,
yeah, it's not a big
giant,
organization in terms of staff size, but sufficient to run this organization.
Right.
As a 10 billion fund.
Right. Okay. But I think within the larger LTAT group, Boustead and all that, I'm sure you must employ tens of thousands of people.
Yeah. If you look at the group as a whole, yes, well, probably we have about 5,000 people working.
Right.
Under the group.
Okay. Okay. So on the ESG part, I mean, just going on the governance thing, you mentioned, I think, one of the press interviews that they're looking at amendments to the Armed Forces Fund Act. Is that right? So something you have to amend the LTAT Act?
Yes. That's what we are doing now. And of course, a company at 50 years, it needs to do medical checkup like any human being. And we think that on this 50th anniversary is the right time for us to make that significant switch, transformation from an investment fund model into a retirement fund. So that model will be reflected in the amendment of the Act.
I see.
In terms of the kind of asset classes that we are investing, in terms of the governance framework we are putting in place, in terms of the composition of the board, how do we enhance the composition in terms of expertise and skills, putting in the right people on investment panel. So those are some of the frameworks that we are putting in place under these amendments. Of course, apart from matters relating to the well-being of the armed forces, and it's the first time, for example, that we are putting a provision of a government guarantee on the retirement fund.
Okay.
We have never had this. The other organization had this. EPF, Tabung Haji, even Tabung Pendidikan National has got that government guarantee provision, but we have never had. So we are putting that particular provision in place as well. And of course, this is also aligned with our mission 550 that we are undertaking now for this year, to achieve a dividend of 5%. Of course, you know, in the context of 50th anniversary, that would be, you know, a target that we would like to achieve, the aspiration target. But it's also significant because that 5% dividend would indicate that stable and sustainable figure over the term. When it comes to dividend target, of course, our target is 1.25% above FD rate. But to be able to target or to achieve 5% dividend, that would be the figure that we would like to maintain over the long term. So in the 50th anniversary, 50 years of LTAT, these are some of the significant items that we would like to achieve. The mission 550, but at the same time, putting in place the right framework for investment, for governance, as part of the amendments of the Act.
Great. No, I think it's marvelous. The kind of changes you're making to LTAT. Do you work a lot with the generals, the armed forces?
Yes. They are our stakeholders, and I think is very easy. Well, to put it in a light term, very easy to work with the generals. Very straightforward. It's either yes or no.
That's good.
So yeah, so I'm very happy to be part of the armed forces community, to be able to work with. Well, perhaps a community different from what we all know.
Yeah, it is different. I mean, you know, we know of the kind of stakeholders you have. So how does this work? I mean, you know, the members of the armed forces, don't they qualify for a pension anyway? Being you know, like employed by aren't they like civil servants who all have a pension?
Yes, they are groups, like officers and above. They are qualified for pension.
I see.
But the non-officers, call it lain-lain pangkat, they are not qualified for pension, and that's why they contribute about 10% of their salary to LTAT, with the government topping up 15%, if I'm mistaken. Yeah, so so we are managing the lain-lain pangkat contribution. Yeah, so that is also why we are different, or how we are different from EPF. Contributors for EPF increase every year. Certain hundreds of thousands of contributors is added to EPF contribution, or EPF fund. But for us, we are limited by the number of the armed forces. Right. Our contributors is about, the number is about 112,000. So that numbers are limited, and that's why the fund size is limited, and potential increase in the fund size is also limited. So in terms of the asset growth, we are limited in that sense, by the number of the contributors. Okay.
So these are for, I mean, non-commissioned officers like the sergeants and you know, people who aren't officers. So what happens? Some of them retire very early, right? In the 40s, people. So you can leave the service.
Yeah, unlike the civil service or
even EPF,
those serving in the police, for example. The active age for members of the armed forces is limited to maybe 40-45 years.
Right.
After which time they can't be expected to operate at an optimal level. So that's why they retire very, very early, at 40 and 45. They would have to think of a second career. So that's why we have NTPs internally within LTAT, like Perhebat, that develop programs for retiring armed forces, to find a second career for them, or to help them in developing businesses, for example.
Okay. So when they retire, I mean, somewhere in their 40s, do they get a lump sum like EPF? Do they give them a lump sum?
Yes, they are entitled to withdraw a contribution along with the government contribution.
I see.
So they can withdraw their fund. Under the amendment of the Act, they would now be allowed to withdraw only part of the fund. Maybe they want to withdraw half. And keep another half to be managed at LTAT for the next few years. Yeah. So those are some of the items you are putting in place under the amendments. That could enhance the benefit for our contributors.
Okay. So it's good that you also part the training of people, so that when as you say, they can have a second career after they retire. It's
yes.
I mean,
but I think it requires a real program, a big social program for the veterans. Otherwise, for people that have served in the armed forces for 20 years, for example, and for them to go for a second career at the age of 40, 45 may be quite difficult.
Yeah.
So if we were to consider the welfare of veterans, I think there have got to be a big socio-economic programs that take care of the requirements after retirement.
No, we do. I think we ought to, right? I mean, we expect them to look after us. We should be looking after them when they leave. And traditionally, armed forces you become taxi drivers and things like that. But no, with Grab and all that, they don't that kind of avenues no longer open.
Yeah, exactly. And then the question is whether it is sustainable for them. I think they can get a career like that, but whether the money earned is sufficient to sustain living. So that's why I mean, internally the government is also developing an economic program for the armed forces over the
That's good. That's good. So talking about the armed forces, and this is something which actually came out in your present review as well, is the role of LTAT in terms of defense contracts and and procurement and things like that. And of course, what's in the news a lot is, let me get this right, littoral combat ships. I'm not sure what littoral combat. Could you explain first of all what is a littoral combat ship, and second, what does this mean to LTAT?
Well, it's basically a warship. It's a ship with combat capabilities.
See.
And LCS is deployed around the world. Is used by so many other countries. So it's not unique to Malaysia. Is a huge ship, about 111 meter long.
Meters, wow.
Yeah. So it's a key combat ship. If we read the defense white paper, if you read the Navy's defense capability document, LCS is one of the key assets that they need to protect our maritime border. Of course, when we talk about maritime border, within that border is vast economic interest, natural resources. I mean, you can really compute that in numbers.
Yeah.
The kind of asset that we have within our maritime border. So LCS is important in that sense to at least protect these maritime assets. Well, when you talk about LCS, of course, that has not been delivered. It should have been delivered in 2019, but it has been delayed because of so many issues, both legacy as well as, well, we can't deny that there's probably element of internal mismanagement as well. So we are correcting that, LTAT being one of the shareholders along with Boustead and Boustead Heavy Industries Corporation. We are pursuing a restructuring of the company. We have managed to obtain a cabinet decision to continue with the LCS project. It would not be accurate to say that the project has been a failure. A delay, yes. There has been a delay of, I mentioned it should have been delivered 2019. We have not delivered that yet. But there have been substantial progress of work done on the ground. If we take a boat to Panko Island, you would see the hulls of the LCS dock at the BNS shipyard in Lumut.
I see. So this is Lumut dockyard.
It's a Lumut dockyard. So there's been a lot of work done in terms of detail design, in terms of the physical construction of the hull. So it's just a matter of continuing it and to deliver that to the Navy. So at the moment, yes, we are doing the restructuring of the company, putting in place the right framework, the right staff, so they can continue and deliver the ship by 2025. 2025,
okay. Now, obviously, from a national security point of view, we need the ships, but I understand there's also been a bit of an overhang in the Boustead group as a whole, isn't it? The future of the LCS.
Yes, but I think with the cabinet decision, that should put Boustead in the right state for them to focus on other areas of business and deliver, because that has been probably the major headache for the company, the biggest problem, I would say, because the failure to resolve this issue would have created a domino effect across the globe, because of the current level of negative shareholders' equity at BNS, the kind of liabilities that they have. If they fail to deliver or to resolve or to restructure some of those liabilities, then it will snowball into cross default on the loans Boustead Group and probably putting Boustead Group at the risk of being declared PN17. And eventually, of course, LTAT being a major shareholder of Boustead, we will have to make a huge impairment of investment. So the financial implication was huge. So that cabinet decision to continue with the LCS, to get us to resolve some of the issues, they are significant. And I think with this resolution, the Boustead Group is in a clear path to transform itself and be a better business entity.
That's good. So will Boustead continue to be doing defense contracts? I mean, in the future, we'll be looking at other types of defense contracts, perhaps?
Yes, we are restructuring the group and considering whether we should take the defense business out of Boustead Group. The existence of the defense business within the group has created a lot of uncertainties, especially for the fund managers, for the analysts. You know, how do we value this business? So there are a lot of you know, vagueness, lack of clarity when it comes to you know, to valuing some of this business. Right. So probably one idea is to consider restructuring the group so that perhaps that defense business is taken out of the listed entity, and they can continue with the current business of you know, being plantation in pharmaceutical and of course it's part of their reinventing plan as well. That restructuring will also allow them to focus on the ESG, or you know, being a group that focus on sustainability.
Yes.
Of course, there are a lot of issues when it comes to having the defense business in the group that wants to focus on sustainability, on ESG. Right. So there is one idea that we are exploring, and we see how it goes.
No, interesting. I mean, but you know, even in the Western world now, they used to say that weapons was non-ESG, but ever since Ukraine war, they're suddenly saying that actually maybe in certain circumstances, you know, manufacturing weapons which are used in self-defense against the Russians is okay from an ESG point of view.
Yeah, I suppose it depends on the context as well.
Yeah, I know, but that's a separate conversation about the definitions of ESG. So we've got lots of questions here. One is from Shafika. It says that last December, it was reported the LTAT seeking a joint venture for the Batu Cantonment Army Camp. Is there any update? And where do you see LTAT in 5 years? In fact, this question, where do you see LTAT in 5 years, has been asked by quite a few other people as well. So Batu Cantonment and LTAT in 5 years.
Well, for Batu Cantonment, it's a specific issue that we are discussing internally. How do we move forward, or how do we approach the land swap arrangement? If I can give a bit of background, Batu Cantonment is where the biggest parcel of land of the army is now located in Batu area, about 280 acres of land, where the plan is now to transfer the camp to somewhere else. It just doesn't make sense to have a camp, that huge acre of land of an army camp right in the middle of the city. So the idea is to have this camp, logistic camp, to be transferred somewhere else. Yeah, so with that transfer of the camp, with that land swap, then how do we approach the redevelopment of the land? Of course, LTAT has got the ownership of the land swap, which would then you know, translate into an ownership of the land once we have gone through the necessary processes. Yeah, I think one idea is, of course, for us, LTAT to enter into joint venture with another party. Because again, as a retirement fund, we are not in the business of property development. We are not in the business of managing companies. So if they were to be a redevelopment exercise, it got to be done by way of a joint venture. What would be the approach? It is something that we are still exploring at the moment.
When you say joint venture, is Boustead Property one of the potential joint venture partners, or could be outside?
Yes. Of course, we would consider a member of our group as a potential partner for the joint venture. And then on the other question on the LTAT in 5 years, I mentioned earlier about our mission 550. I mentioned earlier about our transformation journey. So what we will see over the next 5 years is LTAT achieving its objective of the strategic asset allocation framework, the right mix of assets within its portfolio that covers all the asset classes, and of course that would translate us into providing that stable and sustainable return. We will start at 5%, and that would be the figure that we hope to achieve over the long term.
Okay, thank you. We've got a question from Yan Pultran Mui, who wants to know about taking Boustead private. Is that still on the cards? Was it ever on the cards?
Yes, the idea has been shelved now, simply because number one, you require a lot of funding to undertake the privatization. Number two, once you privatize, what do you do with the privatized entity? When you exit, how do you restructure some of the portfolio of companies within the group? I think those are the questions that we need to answer before we undertake any privatization exercise. So that is not clear, and that carries with it a whole lot of execution risks. So at the moment, yes, that idea has been shelved.
Okay, thank you. It's been fascinating talking to you, Dato Nazim. We only have a few minutes, 1 or 2 minutes left. Can I just ask you to say a few last words before we close off? It's 1:28. You got about 2 minutes left to say a few words. Your last words, final thoughts on this.
Yes, I think we are in the right trajectory now at LTAT level, as well as the companies within the group. We are in a massive transformation exercise, the journey that we started in 2019, and hopefully we could end it well in 2023, which is next year, and by which time we should be able to see a tangible outcome of our transformation. And that tangible outcome can come in the form of dividend return, in the form of the right governance framework that we should have for retirement fund, and that should be able to translate into the ultimate objective of LTAT, which is to protect the well-being of the armed forces. So that would be would have to be the outcome of our transformation journey, and we are determined to achieve that.
Thank you, Dato Nazim. Merci beaucoup. Fantastic. Really enjoyed the conversation with you, and on behalf of everyone, we wish you all the very best in looking after the welfare of our armed forces, as you so aptly put it. So thank you.
Dato.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me just press leave now.
All right.
Okay.